Good evening and welcome to Inside Government for the fall 2017 semester here at KU Community College. This is a show that is broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as WIN 89, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. We are delighted to have in the studio today Superintendent of Schools Jeff Perazzola, who is here to give us an update on the start of the new school year, but also talk a little bit more than half the show about what's going on next door at Holland Stadium. That had its first home game last Friday night. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Guy, for having me.
Well, let's talk about the school year first, and then we'll get into next door for a second. Start of school year, you've been in about almost a month right now. How's it going?
It's going great. You know, again, first day of school and graduation, two most exciting days of the school year. Love to have the kids coming back. Very smooth, very cool first couple of weeks in September. This last week, not so very much.
Yeah, no air conditioning, I'm finding, from a 5-year-old who says it's hot there.
It is, and you know.
But he also says it's also great.
Well, good. Unfortunately, at our elementary school and middle school, we do not have air conditioning. We do at the high school. But what we did is we made sure that we had parts of our schools air conditioned, so the library, the main office, the nurse's office. So if kids do need a break and need to go into a cooler area, there are some cooler areas in every building.
And I was surprised. We'll get into water issues in a little bit, but I was surprised you have ice pops out, and you know the kids are outside. You want them out, but not in an area where it's too hot. Am I correct?
Correct. We have to look at the UV numbers. We have to look at what the humidity is. We have to look at all of those things before we allow the kids to go outside.
So any big change, forget Holland Stadium for a second, any big changes for the district as you start the school this year?
Yeah, we did a lot of construction this year. We had phase 3 of the 2011 capital project.
Okay, so what does phase 3 include?
Phase 3, one of the biggest ones is if you go into Auburn Junior High, the technology wing has been completely updated and renovated. We had some kids come to our board meeting from the middle school Tuesday night, and they said it's fantastic in there. So really updating our technology wing.
Now, is that different than the smart schools money?
Yes. That's a whole nother thing I can talk about.
Well,
as well.
let me ask you, because there was a report that came out, I think, from the New York Policy Institute. It may have been Empire State last week, which was, or 2 weeks ago, that was very critical that the money's not getting to schools. Is the money getting to places like Auburn? That was a $2 billion, and in fact, I think your predecessor was on the review board for that, or on the advisory board for that.
Yeah, we got $3.6 million for that. That was actually supposed to be approved last year. We were hoping to get approved last October. We actually got approved in June of this year, of 2017. So we put our final plan together, we submitted it. They said it's about 8 to 10 weeks in the review process. So
it's taking a while, because you've been superintendent now.
This will be my third year.
Third year.
Yeah,
and she's been gone for a while.
Yeah, yeah, it's taken forever to get, but we're at the last step. We've already got everything in place. We're going to be running wireless in all of our buildings, and that's inside and out. So children who might not have Wi-Fi or access in their homes, they can actually walk right onto school property, sit right down on the playground, and pull up and go on as guests, and they'll have Wi-Fi.
As long as they have either tablets or
right,
laptops,
and that's another.
That's
thing.
a different issue.
We're going to be addressing that hopefully by 2019 through 2021, eventually becoming a one-to-one initiative here in Auburn.
Now, is that going to be something that is through the smart schools, or is that something that you think you'll have to do through your own budget process?
We're going to do part of it through smart schools and then part of it through our own budget process.
So you just mentioned third phase of the 2011 bond issue. Is there a phase 4 still?
No.
Oh, you're done.
This will be the last phase. But with not just the technology wing, we actually completely renovated Genesee's auditorium, Genesee Elementary School's auditorium. That was one of our most rundown auditoriums. It looks beautiful in there. We did some main office work there. We also put a new ceiling in the auditorium at Herman Avenue.
Okay.
Because the tiles were starting to fall apart and fall down. We did some concrete work and blacktopping at Owasco Elementary School, as well as put a new track in at the high school.
So on the track issue of there, because you obviously have a new stadium next door, I did get a viewer question. So are track and field events going to be held up at the high school versus at Holland Stadium?
Yeah, the track is still at the high school. We resurfaced the whole track. It was about 8 years past its useful life.
There was a granular track here at Holland Stadium, and that may have been years ago when you did track and field there, but track and field is mainly at the high school.
Yeah, because the problem is at Holland Stadium, we don't have the dimensions around the concrete structure to put in an official track. That's why. But we do cross country at Auburn Junior High. We still do that. We bought special padding for the turf for the kids to be able to run and finish on the turf.
So shot put, discus,
all at the high school.
All jumping, all those.
All the track events are at the high school, cross country still at the junior high.
This is more of a global question. Starting the new school year, besides budget, what are the goals for this year?
You know, we have quite a few initiatives, and one of our initiatives is every school present. I didn't wear my tag in because
you
always take it off.
Because it shines.
I do have my pin on my tag. You know, one of the things that we face every year, Guy, is our dropout rate. So when you look at Auburn's graduation rate, and this year I'm proud to say it's the highest graduation rate we've ever had in Auburn history since they've been documenting graduation rate. We're going to be around 83, 84%, which is the highest we've ever had. And one of the issues that we face every year is when you have an 11% dropout rate, we can't even get over 90% because we have 11% of our kids dropping out every year. So when you look at an 84% graduation rate out of 89%, we're doing great with the children that come to school, but we can't educate kids if they're not in school.
So I was going to ask you that there's a piece this week in the Citizen on truancy. Mm-hmm. How big a problem is truancy as far as you're concerned?
It's big.
And that's different than dropout, correct?
Well, it leads to the same thing.
Okay.
Our children
because
that are truant.
It says there was a great quote in here, and I want to read it, so I quote it out here. Quote, truancy is not the problem, it is the indicator of other problems.
Correct.
So what does that mean?
So with truancy, if kids aren't in school, we don't know where they are, where are they and what are they doing? And it's probably not always good. And it can
So how do you deal with truancy?
So
because what I've envisioned this is Little Rascals, Spanky, Alfalfa. Because you always had the badge with and the guy flashed the badge, he was the truancy officer. And all the kids from our gang would scatter. But that is not truancy today.
Well, what I did was I hired another social worker this school year, and that person is devoting their time on students that have excessive absenteeism or chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism, by the national definition, is any more than 18 days a school year. Okay. So 2 days a month. If children are missing 2 days of school a month or more, it's chronic absenteeism. Kids can't learn if they're not in school. So what we're doing is we're doing a lot of home visits. Okay. I've already done a couple this year. And we're gonna,
you personally?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. George Whipple, who has been a social worker here forever, knows all of our families.
So somebody's seeing you on their front stoop. That means there's a problem.
There's a problem which I want to help get the children to school. And if there's an issue that I can deal with and help the child be more comfortable, I'm there for that. Or if they need some outside services. So there's
this article talked about a lot about collaboration. So it's not just the district doing this. This is county mental health. This is peer counseling. We can list the whole.
Correct. Ray Bazzari and I've met quite a few times last year. We're collaborating together to try to make sure that our children and families have the services set up for them. And that's why George Whipple is leading this. George has probably done a lot more home visits than I have. I did one with him already this year. But, you know, we want to make sure that...
So you're 3 weeks in and you're already identifying truancy issues, because I think we're about the third week. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Okay. All right, let's switch to next door.
All right, let's...
So Holland Stadium, district had a ribbon cutting last Wednesday night. You had your first football game on Friday night. It was packed. I think before we started the show, you said the ribbon cutting, you had about 1,000 people, which on a Wednesday night is pretty
good. Yeah, pretty
good. Is what you planned what you got?
From the feedback I received, everybody said they just had a great time. I think having Joe Holland there to present helped the evening, but there was a lot of people to thank. And most of my speech was thanking the 100 people that really had their hands in, that really helped us get this across. But again, the biggest thanks goes to the community. Without their vote, we would have never passed it.
So let's take this in pieces, though. But for the structure itself, for what I was there on Friday night, got to see part of the game. For what you paid for, did you get what you wanted? As a facility?
I don't think it could have came out any better.
Okay.
Not only the turf, but enhancing all of the asphalt around it, making a walkway from our parking lot near Denny's to make it handicap accessible, putting the lighting up around there. I don't think it could have came out. You got to remember too, our turf field is probably equivalent to 2 fields in any other high school because of the surface area that we have in Holland Stadium. So it's almost double the turf of anybody else that puts turf
because
down.
Of the edging and everything else.
Yeah, because it encapsulates the whole stadium.
So remind people, how much did it cost?
$2.8 million.
And did you come in on budget or under budget?
We are still under budget.
Do you have still work to do there?
Yes, we're still finishing the punch list, but we're right about on budget as best we can. We might be a couple $1,000s under right now, but we're right there.
And on time?
It was absolutely on time. Matt Van Wendenden from Ad Hand Piping, he was fantastic. He was probably a month ahead of schedule. We could have had the field done a month earlier, but the issue was all the rain that we got in the spring and early summer put actually the turf company behind. So our field was ready.
Because you're in line with other fields across the region.
Yep, that's right.
A couple viewer questions. So the first one is, people on Friday night, and it may have just been timing, wondered why the scoreboard, these are the questions we get. Why is the scoreboard located where it is? Because at sunset, you can't see the numbers on the scoreboard. So
the scoreboard was a request by numerous people, because if you sat in the press box and you were announcing the game or doing the radio or doing the timekeeping.
So if you sit at the south part of the
you couldn't see it.
You can't see it. But if you're sitting on the west side of Holland Stadium, you can see it without a problem.
Yeah, now everyone in the score box, because again, you got to remember, the most important thing is running the scoreboard, and if you can't see what you're doing.
Because it used to be somewhat like perpendicular to the press box, and it was tough to see.
You couldn't see it. They had to stick their head out the windows.
Okay.
So that was the major reason why the scoreboard got
So if you
moved.
want to read the scoreboard and it's sunset, move.
Yes, you will be able to see it in certain areas of the field.
And it just may have been the way the sun was setting that night.
And it could have been.
So I think it was Tuesday night. I happened to be here at the college. I went out and I saw the large arc lights all on at 8 p.m. What is going on at 8 p.m. at Holland Stadium that never went on before?
Well, 8 p.m. was actually the soccer game.
Okay.
It actually went on until about 8:30.
This is your soccer game?
Our soccer.
Okay.
It was either our boys or girls soccer team. And then immediately after the soccer game, our boys lacrosse team was out there practicing.
And so how late will you go till at night?
9:15, 9:30, no later.
And is that normal for a school year, or is it because you have a new facility, now you can do this without a problem?
It is normal for every school that had a turf field but us. Okay. And now that we do, we're giving our kids every opportunity, as does other children from other school districts.
But when you had the regular field there, a grass field, you could not do this at...
We couldn't practice on it at all. Okay. The only thing that was allowed on there were the games. So there was no practicing allowed on Holland Stadium when it was grass, because once it's done, you can't get it back.
So the poor scheduler for Holland Stadium I'm assuming everybody in the district wants to practice there now.
Yes, they do.
And so are you filling the schedule?
Our schedule is completely filled up, and mostly with our own teams right now.
So when you say mostly with your own team, do you allow others to use it?
We are, and we're coming up with a policy. But right now, the only outside students that have used our turf stadium is the CCC soccer team.
Okay.
They've been on there and they've practiced a couple of times. They also have a couple of games scheduled on there as well. And again, this is a community field. So we want to have community outside organizations, you know, Vince Lombardi football, lacrosse, youth soccer. We want to have them all on there.
So it will take some time to get the kinks out of the scheduling problem.
Absolutely.
And how do people approach it? Do they approach your office? Where do they go if they have questions?
They approach Dr. Ray
okay.
and Mike Luziani.
Okay. Who's now with you full-time?
Yeah, he's actually
retired.
Well, yeah, he's actually part-time school monitor and in our scheduler.
And he was so instrumental at Falcon Park when we built that in the 1990s.
He was instrumental in us passing.
He's got two fields under his belt. So
yeah, he's fantastic, top notch.
Any other partnerships planned for the field at this stage, or you just trying to get through at the beginning?
We're trying to get through the beginning right now because of the excitement. You know, our kids are all excited. You know, we've got the girls and the boys lacrosse team that are dying every day to get out there.
So another viewer question was, in past homecomings, and I don't know what the time period they were talking about, they used to have a parade which was, you know, sports cars and the kings and queen candidates rode around that. You're not allowing vehicles on this field.
No. The days of having cars driving on Allen Stadium are completely done. We have special vehicles that we can use, a special tractor that has to have turf tires. We have a John Deere.
So there is an adjustment to some of those other
right,
items. Okay.
and in a golf cart.
Okay. So you and I were talking about this at the beginning. Auburn football, which is a great program, either wins really big or it gets clobbered really big. And this is a viewer question in part because I got this the other day, and this is all high schools in this region, it seems like. There's such this disparity in scoring. What league are we in, and are we staying there?
Well, you know, this issue has been a debate for many years right now. We have always been the smallest AA school in the area. And next year, they finally realigned it. We are actually going to be an A school, which
so who do we move in with?
We're going to hopefully keep our game with Ithaca.
Okay.
But you're going to see JD. You're going to be seeing some of the smaller schools. We'll be playing Cortland.
Janesville,
DeWitt. Yeah,
okay.
Cortland. We've already moved into single A.
Does that change all your sports or just?
We already changed all our sports. Football was the only one that was never addressed.
Because when you look at the ACC, that changed football and basketball for Syracuse for everybody. This is slice by slice.
Now it's going to be everyone, but football was the only one that wasn't included. We had changed in basketball and wrestling and baseball. And
so do you think those will make more competitive games?
I do. You know, and again,
because in the first game with Ithaca, you guys blew out Ithaca in the dome.
And again, CNS had 65 kids on their sideline while we have 35. You know, and that's a huge difference when you're.
There were a lot of blue out there.
There was a lot, and you know, Ithaca had 20-some students on their football team while we, you know, but that was more competitive. And again, I know that we were very successful against Ithaca. I believe we won 50-0. But again, those are the size schools that Auburn should be playing.
So a couple other viewer questions while we're doing this, and I want to get into 2 or 3 other items as well. So one of the questions we received from a viewer was this, and I'll read it specifically. When and how will the school district attract and hire more minority teachers to show the students role models in the classroom? And the viewer, in part of their email, said, the viewer said they do not see many minority teachers in any classrooms.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I think not just the school district, but we all face that, because we actually even had a presentation on a Saturday last year talking about how do we recruit and retain minority candidates. And for us, unfortunately, this year, we really didn't hire very much.
Well, you did layoffs.
We did layoffs.
Okay.
So that didn't help, so we didn't go to any recruitments this year. But when we go to recruitments, we are always looking, because it's very important for our children in Auburn to see role models that look like themselves. And right now, we don't have a good mix of that on our staff.
So the mayor was on Tuesday here, and the police department, as you may know, has started an ad campaign to get people to take civil service exams. And I said, well, is that the first time? I think I had asked him, is that the first time you've done an ad campaign? He said, well, no, we did it a couple of years to try to attract minority applicants. And I said, how did it work? And he said, it didn't.
Right.
And so is this a challenge for smaller school districts, less urbanized, say, for example, compared to a Rochester, a Syracuse, and Albany?
So again, it's much more difficult for the smaller school districts. When I go out to Buffalo and I recruit and we look for minority candidates and I interview them there, their question is, why should I come to Auburn when I can stay right here in Buffalo, and they're going to offer me more money here to stay here, and this is where I live?
So I most likely should have done this question first. Right now you passed your budget, you're in the planning stages for the next budget.
Okay.
You know fundamentally and structurally you have a gap.
Mm-hmm.
What is that gap right now?
It's around about $1 million right now.
And compared to last year, is that the same?
No, we were about $3 million last year.
Okay. So with $1 million gap and no change right now in foundation aid, and if you don't increase, going back to the taxpayers again for another increase. I mean, you were here last February, and we jokingly said, "What's the max you could go to?" And I thought, was it 3.7?
3.98.
3.9. And I said, "Are you going to do that?" He said, "Well, no, I'll be the last superintendent." And then you went to what?
We went to 3.98. Yeah, we did.
But to go back to the voters again, to do it large. So if you don't increase revenue, I'm assuming you can only do it through staff cuts, and that can either be through attrition and retirements. But is that enough to close that gap?
Again, I can only nickel and dime and free spending so much.
No,
so you have to look at staff, because that is where you save.
So that flows into this minority recruitment. If you are laying off staff, you are not hiring.
I'm not exactly correct.
So the other question was, and this is kind of in a two-part, when and how does the school district teach all administrators, teachers, and staff about implicit bias and diversity? And for those who don't know, in your mind, what is implicit bias?
And again, I don't know who asked the question or where they're referring, but you know, I think it's the tolerance piece that we have to teach our children.
And do you do that with all staff?
Well, and I'll tell you.
And administrators, I should say that.
This summer, I met with 2 members from the Human Rights Commission.
The city or the states?
City.
Okay.
Bob Ellison and Joe Leogrand. And we sat down and had a great conversation on how we can continue to support tolerance and handle bias. And we are going to do some projects this year. Actually, I talked to Mr. Ellison last week. He's going to speak with Krista Martin, who is our new Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction.
Replaced Leah George.
She replaced Leah George. Krista has worked with the NAACP for many, many years. And we are going to do some instruction, and we're going to target different grade levels so that we can make sure, like in a 3 to 4 year period, that we're getting all of our kids through it, plus some diversity training for our staff as well. And we're really going to be looking into that.
Do you do that in small groups, or are they those full-day training sessions?
We've done it multiple ways. When I first started back as the assistant superintendent, we had diversity training, and I used to, all of our new staff members did small groups, so anyone that we hired that year went through diversity training. And then we did bigger groups of current staff members, because I had diversity training. I went through it as well, and I was with a bigger group when I did it. So, you know, I'm going to meet with Krista Martin. We're going to talk about exactly how we want to go about that. But again, diversity training is huge, and you know, when you're looking at discrimination, I mean, there's multiple factors to look at with discrimination.
So two topics that normally might not be on a school superintendent's desk, but they most likely are right now, well, at least one of them. One is water quality. So obviously you get most of your, well, you get all of your water for your schools through Owasco Lake, through the city's filtration plant. There are obviously some concerns about blue algae. Is that an issue for the school district at this stage?
It's a huge issue.
Okay.
And I'm on the Chamber of Commerce as well on the board, but I'm also on the advocacy committee as well, and that's one of the issues that we're chasing too, is a chamber board.
So have you changed the way water, so I know last year we talked about when you first came on, you had gone through, you personally had gone through for all the water testing of all the drinking fountains.
The lead, that was lead.
And that you've corrected those anomalies.
Yes,
There was only one, am I correct?
Correct. There was a couple, but they weren't really drinking fountains. We only had one drinking.
So the reason I asked this water question, because there was a news story, I think on Channel 9 last week, where in Skinny Atlas, because of the bloom, and they get their water clearly from a different source.
Correct.
They were shutting down water fountains and they were bringing out bottled water.
Correct.
You are not at that stage yet, are you?
I've already got that all planned.
In case there's a problem?
In case there's a problem, we've already notified our water company. We will be bringing in dispensers and jugs of waters that will be placed throughout all of our school buildings. Our custodians will tape off all drinking fountains. So there will be no access to any drinking fountains. Again, what we're told by the health department is you can still wash your hands, you just can't consume the water. So we will have water brought in.
Well, you can consume the water right now.
Oh, yeah, yes. No, if there was, right, if there was a no drink.
The other item, I'm asking this of all the government people, last question, is voters next month, or excuse me, in November, are going to be able to vote on a constitutional convention. Whether they want to have one to look at reforms for the state, have a convention to put forth this on a referendum. Do you support it, or are you against it?
What do you think school districts do?
Well, you are the only ones who go to voters, so you're okay with a constitutional convention.
Listen, you know, it is what it is, I guess. And
do you think it's a good idea?
We haven't had one in how many years?
1960 something.
Yeah. So you know, I would rather wait and go. How many more years before it gets brought up again? What is it?
Every 20 years.
20 years. I'd like to go another 20 years, and let's bring that conversation
Because you, as far as you're concerned, the system is broken.
It is.
And we're going to come back in November. You and Lisa Green, your business manager, executive, are going to be here.
We're going to talk about the IWI.
IWI is
it's
not a wrestling system.
It is the Income Wealth Index.
Okay. So you're going to be back here in 2 months once we get through the candidate forums in the next month. But we do want to thank Auburn Superintendent of Schools, Jeff Perazzola. Congratulations on Holland Stadium. It looks great to you and your voters.
Thank you.
And we will be back in November with both he and Lisa Green to discuss foundation aid and what the district is doing to look at those issues as they prepare for their 2018-2019 budget. We'll be back in just a moment with Beyond the Front Page, where we'll be discussing the E. John Gavris Center with several of their representatives. We hope you'll join us for that. We'll be back on Tuesday with both an Inside Government show with Assembly Minority Leader Brian Kolb, who will be discussing not only his possible run for governor, but again the Constitutional Convention and where he stands on that. That'll be followed by an update on Falcon Park and what the Double Days did this last year and what they plan next year with Adam Winslow, their general manager. Next Thursday, we'll have Keith Batman, the chairman of the Cuyahoga County Legislature, to give us a county update, as well as talk about where they are in the hiring of a county administrator. And we'll finish off with another discussion about West Middle School. See, I left that out for you. And 2+4's Sue Kimmel, as well as Unity House's Liz Smith, to discuss that. And then once we're done with those 4 shows, we will be in our regular schedule of candidate forums that will run through the month of October. You can tune in and send us your thoughts and questions at cozguitho@aol.com or Inside Government or Beyond the Front Page, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. We hope you have a good night, have a great tomorrow. We hope you do stick around for Beyond the Front Page, and we'll be right back.